Hi, this is Stuart Taylor. Welcome to Lecture 7, Social Engineering. As mentioned in Lecture 6, any risk assessment should involve calculating the attack surface. Part of this involves evaluating the employee attack surface. Social engineering is one method used by attackers to exploit employees in order to gain access to offices, to systems, to data, and to networks. This is done mostly via misrepresentation. Social engineering is part psychology, part science, and part art. That isn't to glamorise social engineering. Social engineering is used frequently to coerce people into doing things they wouldn't normally do. And when it concerns your information security, that's a bad thing. Because the end result of any social engineering attack is the same: loss of data. Social engineering attacks can be carried out in a number of ways: in person, on the phone, by email. Classic social engineering attacks include: over the phone example, the attacker calls a company employee and pretends to be from technical support. They explain there's a problem with the user's account. They ask the user for their login credentials, which unfortunately the user provides. The attacker then claims to have resolved the problem and hangs up. In person, the attacker arrives at reception claiming to be a service worker, maybe from the telephone company, or a contractor or consultant. The receptionist believes the attacker to be plausible, and the attacker is allowed access to the building. The attacker is then free to roam around looking for information that's been carelessly left around the office, and you'd be surprised how many people leave their username and their password written on a note underneath the keyboard. Dumpster diving. The attacker rummages through the garbage of an organisation looking for information that's been thrown away. In many cases, people leave confidential information in waste bins instead of having it destroyed. The attacker finds valuable information, and that can be used in a different type of attack, such as the one described earlier over the phone, to make it even more plausible. Shoulder surfing and tailgating. In a shoulder surfing attack, the attacker simply hovers around, watching other people enter their usernames, their passwords, or their PIN numbers, etc. Tailgating happens when door entry systems are breached by a person who just simply walks in behind a bona fide member of staff, without themselves having to use a PIN number or a swipe card to gain entry. Both of these types of attack rely on trust. They rely on one employee believing that the attacker is also staff, and that their behaviour is harmless or benign. Social engineering attackers can be very persistent. If they don't get what they need from one member of staff, they may reach out to others until they eventually get what they need. Avoiding social engineering attacks is really about user awareness. The more you're able to educate your employees about social engineering, the lower the risk of an attack. The following techniques should form part of any awareness program. Be suspicious. When you receive phone calls, emails, or if visitors come to the building requesting information about other employees or about any sort of information that you deem to be confidential about your organisation, always treat those requests with extreme suspicion. I can't imagine anybody getting into trouble for being suspicious, but I can imagine people getting into trouble for allowing confidential information to be leaked to potential attackers. Verify people's identity. Always seek to identify that the caller or the visitor is genuine. This might require you to ask to see their ID, or if it's somebody that's telephoned, you might need to independently establish their telephone number, maybe through the Yellow Pages, and call them back. A note of caution: business cards are not a form of ID and should not be trusted. Anybody can put business cards together. Be cautious. Be certain who you're talking to, by all means, by verifying their identity. But just because they are who they say they are, and that you have verified them, it doesn't mean they're actually entitled to be given any confidential information. Establish that they have the right to the information that they've requested. Email. Never use email to provide any sort of confidential information, even if the person requesting it has been verified and is genuine. Email is an inherently insecure technology. And what's more, you have no control over what happens to any emails that you send. In summary, this lecture has covered social engineering as a form of attack. We looked at some classic examples of social engineering attacks, and we looked at what to include in a social engineering awareness program that you might want to put together for your employees. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.